Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome back to yet another Formula One Grand Prix in 2026, the 8th race weekend of the 2026 season, here at the Red Bull Ring for another edition of the Austrian Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that usually delivers in terms of having close, exciting, competitive racing and lots of action. Last few years we've had plenty of action here. Obviously, a track where you can overtake, and because of how short the lap is, it is the shortest lap of the year compared to obviously all the other tracks on the calendar. That usually makes the gaps through the field a bit closer than normal, and given how close things were in qualifying just a couple of weeks ago at the last Grand Prix in Spain, where we only had, I think, was it 3 or 4 tenths covering the top 7, it very much could be a tenth or two that separates first from 6th or 7th on the grid. That is how close it really could be today. And looking from practice 3, we only had, I think, about 2.5, 3 tenths separating the, top 6 or top 7. So we are very much close to that range of the top few cars being separated by such little lap time. And that is what hopefully should make today, which is qualifying day at the Austrian Grand Prix, an exciting one. Qualifying always tends to be close and exciting, and I don't see why it will be really any different today at what is a very hot Red Bull Ring. Of course, a massive heat wave hitting Western and Central Europe. Obviously, we've had a massive heat wave here in the UK. If you are in the UK, hopefully you have managed to get through most of the heat wave all right. In my part of the UK, in Cornwall, it's still hot, but the worst of the heat has gone. I think, was it about 3-4 days ago? It was so bad I could barely breathe. I have asthma, so I suffer even more when we have excessive heat. But yeah, it was so bad. I've never known it be so hot ever in my life. Honestly, it was incredible, the 2-3 days we had. But even though it's cooled down the last couple of days, it still feels pretty hot. So if you're in hotter parts of the UK like the southeast, hope you've managed well enough and you're still managing well enough. And if you're in Europe, especially France, where it's been, I think, the hottest part of Europe, then yeah, I hope you're doing well, considering the extreme heat that we are having. So far, this is the hottest summer that I can remember. And we're not even halfway through summer yet. We've only had, 3-4 weeks of summer, and we haven't even entered July, which is normally the hottest month. So God knows what is lying ahead of us. But yeah, at the Red Bull Ring, it is very hot. It is over 30 degrees Celsius, the air temperature, and the track temperature. If the sun is fully out, you're looking at a track temperature of probably around 50, or even towards 55 degrees Celsius. It is very hot. We have seen this here before, though, at the Red Bull Ring. I remember back in 2019, we had a very hot race here. In that year, I think for the race day, it was 36 degrees for the air temperature, and then the track temperature, I think, was like 51, 52 or something like that. So it's not like we've not had it before here at this track, but yeah, it is still a very hot Grand Prix, this Austrian Grand Prix. Hopefully the fans out there will be enjoying it. And of course, it will play a big factor in especially tomorrow's Grand Prix, and strategy, tires, all of that. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out tomorrow. But today, it is all about qualifying and absolutely, thrashing your car to bits and pushing to the absolute limit. And we will see who ends up taking pole position today. And I really do believe that, we could see 2 or 3 different teams very possibly taking pole position at this Grand Prix. So, very much looking forward to it. Been looking forward to it really for a few weeks, given how things have closed up. Really since, say, the start of May. The field's definitely at the front, a lot closer than it was in the first 3 races. So, yeah, this should be a good one. And of course, as we usually do in the build-up to these qualifying sessions, we'll go through the data so far to give you a good amount of, say, knowledge going into qualifying as to what the teams are looking like and what probably should happen in the session itself. Before I get into anything else, though, again, hello to all you guys. Hope you're all doing well. And no matter what part of the world you're in, no matter what time zone you're in, hope you're all having as best time as possible. And if it is overly hot, again, I hope you're coping with it as well as you can. And I hope you can join me today in watching along and enjoying qualifying for the Austrian Grand Prix, which gets underway, as you can see on screen, in 1 hour and 23 minutes time. And yeah, we're going to go through the usual build up, look through the data from practice yesterday. I will also let you guys know a couple details from what happened in practice 3 earlier, which are important to know going into this session regarding certain teams improving on the pace they showed yesterday. So yeah, we'll get into that soon enough. And then, of course, I'll give my predictions for the session. I want to hear from you guys as well. What are your predictions for qualifying? And, as usual, there is a poll running in the chat where I've asked you guys, who do you think will take pole position for the Austrian Grand Prix? Your 4 options are Kimi Antonelli, George Russell, Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen. So those are your 4 options. Let me know out of those 4, who do you think is most likely to take pole? I could have easily put Piastri, Hamilton, and Leclerc in there, but I can only put 4 options at most in that poll, and I've gone for the 4 most likely that I think are the 4 most likely. The 2 Mercedes cars look very good. Mercedes do look the favourites so far from this weekend. And then, McLaren look good, but Lando Norris, we know, is the quicker McLaren driver normally around this track, even though he's not been as quick as Piastri this weekend so far. Normally Lando is really strong here. And then obviously you've got Max Verstappen, who is also very strong at this circuit. But then obviously you got the Ferraris as well. So yeah, it very hard to come up with the selections I have for the poll, but those are the options I've given. If you don't think it'll be any of those 4, if you think it will be Oscar Piastri or one of the 2 Ferrari drivers who takes pole position, make sure to post that comment in the live chat, and I'll make sure to read it out before we get into qualifying itself. But yeah, let's get into the data so far this weekend. And of course, start by looking at practice 2, which took place yesterday, most representative session we've had so far this weekend, where we had the fastest lap time of the weekend set by Kimi Antonelli at 1 minute 7.0. The fastest time of practice 3 was only, I think, slightly slower than that from George Russell. Let me just check officially to see what the official best lap time of practice 3 was, but I'm pretty sure from what I saw that it was slightly slower. And yeah, it was a few hundredths of a second slower. So Antonelli with the quickest lap time of the weekend so far. And yeah, Mercedes really from the word go have looked like the best team. I wouldn't say by far, but comfortable, 2 to 3 tenths of a second gap to the next best team, whether that's McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari. that's what it looks like with Mercedes-Benz. They look like they've got the best car, which it's not really a surprise. Mercedes do have still the strongest engine on the grid. Ferrari have brought an engine upgrade, but we still don't know how much improved or how much of an improvement that has made to Ferrari's lap time. But I don't think Ferrari would have suddenly now closed the gap fully to Mercedes in terms of the deficit they were giving away in power to the Mercedes power unit. So, this track, a power track, again, it's not really a surprise that Mercedes are the fastest team around a track like this, where they've got, a good downforce package, not maybe the best, but a very good one, and then still, I think, comfortably around power tracks, the strongest car, which is, something we saw quite a bit of not too long ago at the Canadian Grand Prix, which is also a power track. So, yeah, not a surprise that Mercedes are in the position they're in. McLaren looking good, but also we have to remember Mercedes powered, 2 to 3 tenths off the pace of Mercedes, which is about as good as I expected from them, to be honest. In fact, I'd probably say I think McLaren are probably a tad quicker than I expected, but I don't think realistically McLaren can get any closer to Mercedes this weekend than, say, 2 tenths of a second. There is a clear gap there. Mercedes just have a superior car for these types of circuits in terms of the way it handles, compared to, say, a track like, Barcelona, which is a lot different to this one. So, yeah, Mercedes having a comfortable gap there to McLaren. Second and third for McLaren. And then Max Verstappen in fourth, half a second off the pace. Red Bull definitely will close that gap in qualifying. We even saw, actually, in practice 3, Max doing a much better lap time of a 1 minute 7.3, which is, 2 tenths, 2.5 tenths quicker than he went in practice 2. So immediately, Red Bull showing a bit better pace. Ferrari, I think, arguably sandbagging the most in practice. Again, Ferrari have brought an upgraded engine for this race, but again, we don't know how big of an improvement it's made or might make. It might only be a tenth, it might be 2 or 3 tenths, we just don't know. And by the way, just for clarification, Ferrari are the only Ferrari-powered team, if that makes sense, running the new power unit. Haas and Cadillac are running the old power unit. Cadillac, by the way, have brought, I think, 10 new upgrades. Very big upgrade package for them. Hopefully it works out. But Cadillac, I don't think, are going to be running the new Ferrari power unit until the British Grand Prix, which, of course, is next weekend. And I expect Haas will probably be doing the same. So, yeah, just the Ferrari works team using the new Ferrari power unit for this Austrian Grand Prix. Yeah, Ferrari, 6 tenths off the pace, 107.6. That is, 4 tenths slower than they did in practice 3, where they improved a bit, but still unable to get on terms with Mercedes, even though they improved by quite a bit from practice 2 to practice 3. So, in terms of how far Ferrari are off the pace, I don't think Ferrari have got the pace to be on the front row like they were at the last Grand Prix in Spain. They will be closer than 6 tenths of a second off, no doubt about it. I think they'll be more likely to be around 2 to 3 tenths off in qualifying, but Mercedes do appear to have a clear advantage over them, Red Bull and McLaren as well. But the fight between McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari is going to be very close, no doubt about it. It really is going to come down to the drivers, I think, and how they perform as to who ends up in what positions. George Russell did not have a good day yesterday, but he looks a lot better today. He actually topped practice 3 and went a few hundredths of a second quicker than his young Italian teammate, who of course is leading the championship. You would expect Russell to be very quick here. He's won this Grand Prix before 2 years ago, but Russell been very quick here. Was when he was racing here in Formula 2 and F3. He's always been very quick at the Red Bull ring. So, yeah, it's not a surprise that Russell, at his best, is right there where really he does need to be. And in terms of today for Russell, given how quick Mercedes look, pole position has to be Russell's target. He cannot afford anything less after, what's happened recently. But, I mean, the last Grand Prix took 18 points out of Antonelli's lead over him. So if he can take pole and maybe grab the win this weekend, then can continue to, close down Antonelli and the championship. But if both Mercedes drivers are performing at their best, then yeah, Mercedes look like they've probably got the front row covered, I would say. Not by miles, but by enough to where it's a comfortable-ish gap over the rest. So yeah, Mercedes, the team to beat, no doubt about it. Isaac Hadjar, 7th. Hadjar complaining a lot about the balance of his car. Wasn't looking great, I must say, in practice 3, but he will probably be 7th, 8th at best, something like that. I'd be surprised, to be honest, if he's in the top 6. And then Charles Leclerc, who has been very strangely anonymous this weekend. 8th in practice 2, and quarter of a second slower than Hamilton. And then in practice 3, he was another quarter of a second slower and back in 7th place, whilst Hamilton was in 3rd. I know he didn't do practice 1 because Ferrari ran their young driver Dino Begenovic, who is an F2 driver. Obviously, all the teams have to run young drivers at some point during the season. In I think first practice session. So Ferrari deciding to get that out of the way here with Leclerc. But ever since Leclerc has stepped into that car, he has not looked anywhere near his teammate. I don't know if it is, due to him not doing practice 1 and he just isn't dialed into the racetrack properly. I don't know if it's because of what's happened in the last couple races where, remember, Leclerc's not even finished the last 2 Grand Prix. I don't know what's going on, but he is just not at it at all, which is really weird, especially around this track, because this has, historically speaking, been a really good track for Charles Leclerc. He won here 4 years ago. That was the last time Ferrari actually won this Grand Prix. He's took pole here. What was it, 2019? He did an amazing drive here in 2020, finishing 2nd. He was 2nd in 2023, where he actually was leading the race for a bit. Normally, Leclerc is really strong here, but for some reason this weekend, he is just a quarter of a second away from Hamilton and just not really at all on the pace. So, yeah, there is something up with Leclerc, whether it's, a balance issue or a confidence issue. I don't quite know, but there is something up with him. And hopefully as the weekend progresses, we'll see more of whatever that issue is. But if you're a Leclerc fan, it's really not looking good. Not only because of his form at the minute, but if anyone is going to challenge for the Drivers' Championship at Ferrari, it looks very likely at the minute to be Lewis Hamilton rather than Charles Leclerc, which is a bit of a surprise, to be honest, given how Leclerc started the season and how Leclerc has been in the last 2-3 years. But yeah, Leclerc right now, really off kilter, put it that way. Then a bit of a drop off to the midfield, which is really quite far behind the top teams at the minute. Liam Lawson in ninth, Racing Bulls, very quick here. Not a surprise. This is a track that really suits their car well. And then Audi getting the car in the top 10 with Gabriel Bortoleto. And then the rest of the order in practice 2 was Gasly 11th. Alpine, I would expect to be a tad quicker than that. Lindblad 12th. Behrman 13th. Good pace from Behrman. And then Hulkenberg 14th. Ocon 15th. And then Colapinto. Albon, Sainz, Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, and Perez. Both Cadillacs having, I think, overheating problems in practice 2. So they didn't really get to find out the true magnitude of, say, their upgrades. One thing I will say is, even though I know, obviously, they're not very quick at the minute, I am surprised just how far off the pace Williams are. Williams 17th and 18th in practice 2, and half a second away from the top 10, which around a track like this is, half a second is a lot. It really is a lot to be losing to another midfield team. So, yeah, Williams, I don't know what's going on there. I really don't. I know, they've got the overweight issues. But despite that, they did score points in Canada not too long ago. Obviously, had a points finish in Monaco. They've been improving. But this type of circuit, you would expect them to be a bit better at than like the last one in Spain. Because this one, they've got a Mercedes engine. And this track is, I think, a bit more suiting to that car. But yeah, they just seem, again, to just have no pace. Really, not making the progress at this point that I think they really need to be. But I don't know, maybe we'll see something a bit stronger from them in qualifying. But yeah, it does not look good for the Williams team. Anyway, let's get into the sector time data just to understand why mainly Mercedes are the fastest team this weekend. So the first sector is all about straight line speed, really. You've got one, real corner, which is turn 1, which is a medium speed corner. But everything else in the first sector, you are just flat out. And no surprise, Mercedes and McLaren, the two Mercedes-powered teams at the top. Mercedes, though, a 10th quicker than McLaren. The Mercedes just better suited with its design to tracks where you need lower drag, and I think that is the difference in the Mercedes and the McLaren. Is the McLaren, I think, just has a bit more drag compared to that Mercedes. The Mercedes is very well efficiently designed for a circuit like this, which is why they're so good around tracks like this, especially with the power unit they've got. And then you got Ferrari 10th and a half off, just like Red Bull. In this part of the lap, I mean, for Ferrari, I'm not sure whether they should be closer or they will be closer. With this upgraded engine, maybe the upgraded engine is showing its worth here by putting them only just over a 10th behind Mercedes. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I'm not sure if they had the old engine in, maybe they'd be 2.5 tenths off the pace. It's very possible. So yeah, it's difficult to say with Ferrari in this part of the lap whether they can or will find more because they've been sandbagging heavily in maybe this area. But generally, for the front 4 teams, it's pretty close. 10th and a half is really not a lot. And yeah, it is generally pretty close between those 4. And then not too far back, you're Racing Bulls, Audi, Alpine, and then Haas Williams, all pretty much on similar pace. Cadillac then about a quarter of a second back from Williams. Again, Cadillac don't have the updated Ferrari engine. And also, we must remember with Cadillac, when we look at these sector times, that they did not do their best times in practice yesterday because they had quite a lot of reliability trouble. And then, yeah, Aston Martin at the very back, which you would expect. And then coming into the middle sector, the McLaren really starting to show a lot more quality, not only being quicker than Mercedes, but 0.2 quicker than Red Bull and a quarter of a second quicker than Ferrari. And I think in these parts of the lap is where Ferrari, I don't believe, have shown their true potential, because I just don't see how McLaren are going to be that much quicker than Ferrari in this part of the lap when it actually matters. So I would expect that gap between McLaren and Ferrari to come down by maybe a tenth. Not saying McLaren won't be quicker than Ferrari in the middle sector, but I'm surprised at it being a quarter of a second. Then a bit of a drop off to Racing Bulls, half a second exactly off the pace, slightly quicker than Audi, Alpine, Haas, Williams again. All of those teams generally on very similar pace. And then a big drop off to Aston Martin and Cadillac. One thing I will say though, regarding the front running teams, is Red Bull, given that according to the FIA, they've got the strongest ICE on the grid and potentially have the strongest power unit on the grid, for them to be losing pretty much a quarter of a second, not even a quarter of a second, 3.5 tenths after 2 sectors around a power track, not great. Really not great. Again, I know they had handling issues in some of those slower speed corners like turn 3, but really, I think Red Bull can improve a lot and find a lot more, lap time, because they should not be losing 3.5 tenths from the start of the lap until the end of the middle sector, because that part of the lap, those first 2 sectors, is really where the Red Bull should be at its strongest. So I really don't get why they are just so far off the pace compared to what their pace should be. But maybe in qualifying that they will actually find that pace and find that groove. Hopefully they will. But yeah, I'm surprised at that, put it that way. And then we have the final sector, which is a great sector for seeing the cars, or not the cars, but the drivers really throwing the cars about and pushing to the limit. But also, it does kind of indicate what cars are doing very well in high-speed corners. Mercedes and McLaren, very quick, but then a big drop-off to Ferrari and Red Bull of about 0.3 of a second. And yeah, Ferrari, again, surely are sandbagging to a degree, because I just don't see why they would be this far off the pace in the final sector when we know through the corners that they've got a bit of a better car than this. Not saying necessarily the best car, but, in high-speed corners, but not quite this far off. So I do feel like Ferrari haven't quite shown their hand. Red Bull, with Red Bull, I wouldn't say they have not shown their hand, but I feel like Red Bull can improve a lot more than others can. I don't think Red Bull have found their true potential, rather than them knowing their true potential, but sandbagging or anything like that. Bit of a drop off then to Racing Bulls, and then again Audi, Alpine, Haas, all pretty much on the same pace, but then a big drop off to Williams of a quarter of a second to between Haas and Williams. And that really is why Williams are so far off the pace, is this final sector, which we know the Williams has a lack of downforce, but also they are quite a bit overweight. And this final sector is the part of the lap where that's really going to show itself the most, unfortunately. And that's why they are so far off the pace. Aston Martin then in 10th, then Cadillac 11th, but not representative data there from Cadillac, again, because of the reliability problems they had in practice too. But generally, looking at the lap, I'd say not only Mercedes the quickest team, but McLaren looking like they've got a consistently good car through pretty much the whole lap. But as I said, Red Bull, I do think can find more time. I think there's 2 to maybe 3/10 at most that Red Bull can find to improve. I don't think Red Bull can find enough to get on pole. I don't think that's possible for them, but I think they can find enough to definitely get in there with the McLarens. And then with Ferrari, maybe there is a tad of improvement that could be found, but I feel like with them, it's more so they're just not pushing, or were not pushing as hard in practice yesterday compared to some of the other teams. I mean, we saw that, didn't we, to a degree in Spain, where in Friday practice, they didn't really look that good. And then suddenly, midway through qualifying, they showed their, I wouldn't say their true potential, but, showed really good pace. And then came alive, really, for the rest of the weekend. So, to a degree, maybe we'll see that again here. But we have to remember with the Ferrari team that this track is definitely less suiting to their car than the last track we were at, Circuit de Catalunya. So I think some of the gap between Mercedes and Ferrari is probably just the gap between Mercedes and Ferrari officially around a circuit like this. But I think that 0.6 of a second, I think at least half of it is just Ferrari not pushing quite as hard. So if you're a Ferrari fan, I wouldn't panic necessarily. There is more pace to come, but I'm not sure necessarily when that extra pace is shown that it will result in really that much better of a position than what has been shown so far. Pecking order wise, Mercedes are clearly the fastest team. Again, I think they've got about a 2 to 3/10 of a second buffer over the rest. McLaren, if both drivers could really pull out great laps in Q3, then that will really help their cause. But I think, if Red Bull and Ferrari are right in the mix with them, which I think they will be, then, if you get drivers like Max and Hamilton delivering on their laps, it's going to be a tough task to get a really good grid position here in Austria. But in terms of the pecking order, I'd say Mercedes quickest, second quickest, even though it will be very close, I think probably is just about McLaren. And then third, you're looking at probably really close, I'd say, between Red Bull and Ferrari. I think third and fourth, I mean, they're pretty much matching each other. So, second, third, fourth teams of McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari, again, they're all going to be very close to each other. But Red Bull and Ferrari, I'd say, are basically matching each other. But Mercedes definitely the quickest team. McLaren, I would say, slightly quicker than Red Bull and Ferrari, but not quicker to the point where they can safely out-qualify both Red Bulls and both Ferrari cars, because Red Bull has Max, Ferrari has Lewis and Charles, who we know are demons in qualifying. And then midfield-wise, Racing Bulls look like they've got a very good car. I do feel, though, like Alpine have not shown their true potential. Obviously, Mercedes-powered. And we do see, to a degree, with Alpine, that they're not always that quick in practice, but then in qualifying, they tend to be, not all the time, but enough of the time, delivering good pace. So I think Alpine and Racing Bulls, as I said, coming into this Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago, I was very much expecting those two to be the quickest two midfield teams, and they are. So I think those are the two midfield teams to really look out for. And then after that, it looks like it's Audi 7th, Haas 8th, Williams 9th, and then it'll be Cadillac 10th and Aston Martin in 11th. One thing I am curious to see is with Cadillacs, all their upgrades, is how close they will be to the midfield teams ahead of them. In practice 3, let me just have a look how far off they were. So Sergio Perez was only half a second off the Williams, which I know you might say, oh, around a track like this, that's still a massive gap. I mean, it is to a degree, but, in the race, if they can only be half a second off the pace of Williams, that's not too bad. That will keep them in a decent enough spot, I would say. But yeah, pecking order wise, that's what I think it looks like going into qualifying. If you think different, let me know in the chat. But let me get into, as we've got less than an hour to go now until qualifying, let me get into my qualifying predictions. And here is my predicted top 10. Antonelli, I think, will take pole from Russell in second. Max, I think, will produce a stunning lap and get third on the grid. Not because necessarily the Red Bull car is the second best car, but because Max is just so amazingly great, as we know, around this track. Lando Norris, I'm going to go in fourth. Hamilton will just about sneak into fifth place, ahead of the other McLaren of Oscar Piastri, sixth. And then I'm going to go Isaac Hadjar, seventh. Charles Leclerc down in eighth. Pierre Gasly in ninth. And Liam Lawson in P10. So that's my top 10 prediction, guys. Let me know whether you agree or disagree. And of course, as I said earlier, there is a poll running in the chat where you guys can let me know who do you think will take pole position. But yeah, Mercedes, I'm pretty confident that they will lock out the front row. I'm pretty confident of that. There you go. 52 minutes to go until the session is underway. So yeah, let me know in the chat what you think is going to happen and who you think is going to be where for the session. As the F2 sprint race, I think it is finished. They're just doing the podium celebrations. Can't remember who won, to be honest. But yeah, that's finished. So next on track will be Formula 1. Before, though, I get onto any comments in the chat, just want to quickly say, don't forget to subscribe if you are new for more content like this, because we do qualifying and race watch-alongs throughout the 2026 Formula 1 season. You can go to the bottom right of the screen and click subscribe, or just click on my channel name, go to my channel page and click subscribe there. Make sure to smash the like button if you haven't already. Obviously does help the channel in the algorithm, helps the channel grow. And yeah, let me know, like I said, who do you think is going to finish where in qualifying, and let me know your general thoughts going into the session. Yeah, there was a couple things, though, that I just wanted to get into before I read out any comments. A couple of these things are some quick, say, rumors regarding seats for next year, for obviously 2027. So, as we know, Esteban Ocon is under pressure at Haas. He's not been performing well enough. He has scored a couple points this season, but yeah, he just, it's not the same Esteban Ocon that we've seen before. He just isn't performing at the level that he really needs to if he's going to be at that team. Never mind long term, but just going forward into next year. And there is quite a few rumors regarding who is going to replace Ocon, and in terms of Ocon being replaced, it looks very likely he will be replaced. And the options for Haas right now look to be either Rafa Camara, who is a Ferrari Driver Academy prospect. He is in F2. He's in third in the F2 championship at the minute. Apparently Ferrari are very keen on him and they want him to take that Haas seat for next year. So there is a bit of pressure there for Haas to take him on. The other option, though, apparently is Yuki Tsunoda, who, of course, is still around, hoping to get back onto the grid. Really deserves to be on the grid, let's be honest. But it looks at the minute like Haas are favouring the Rafa Camara option, which I think is the right decision because, as I said a couple weeks ago, when they replace Ocon, they've got to look to the future because Oliver Behrman, who is basically the team leader now, very likely Behrman will be at the team next season, but next season is also very likely to be his last season at the team because he is a hot prospect and there are so many teams out there that I think are keen on having him. Obviously, Ferrari, if a spot opens up there, I don't think it probably will if Lewis Hamilton keeps performing the way he is. Red Bull, you never know if they lose Max Verstappen and they can't go and get, say, someone like George Russell. There's I think a good chance that they might look at someone like Oliver Behrman. You've also got Audi, who need really like a proper star driver. Audi have got two very good drivers. Bortoletto I like, but I wouldn't say Bortoletto is a star driver. So, yeah, Behrman's got a lot of options going forward, and very likely he's, next year, if he is still with the Haas team, that will very likely be his last season. So, again, they've got to look to the future. And Camara is looking like a good prospect and looks like he very well could be that future. What if they were to lose, though, Oliver Behrman at the end of this season for 2027? They could just simply put both Tsunoda and Camara in their car next year, which I think would be a good driver lineup. Tsunoda, we know in the right conditions, he can perform well. He was, performing well for Racing Bulls until he got his Red Bull opportunity and then, completely flopped last year. And then, with Camara, I think Camara is definitely good enough to where he deserves a chance in Formula One. So, yeah, maybe that's also a prospect for them. But, yeah, very much looking like Esteban Ocon is on his way out, and this very well could be Ocon's final year in Formula One. I'd be surprised if Ocon was still on the grid, to be honest, next season if he continues performing the way he has been. And then the second rumour, a surprising one, given the implications for a certain driver, but apparently Nikola Solov, who is the next driver in the Red Bull pipeline, in the Red Bull Driver Academy. He's the next one, like I said, in the pipeline for a Formula One seat. Apparently has been guaranteed a seat at Racing Bulls next year. I don't know how accurate those reports are, but there were other people reporting the same story who I believe enough to think there is, at least some truth there. And Solov was actually asked this weekend about it, and he didn't deny it. Put it that way. So, yeah, that has really come out of nowhere. Again, though, Solov being at Racing Bulls next year, that isn't a surprise. I actually did a 2027 driver lineup prediction video on my channel last summer where I said I think Solov will be at Racing Bulls in 2027 because he's the next one on the pipeline. He's good. And, Racing Bulls, we know the purpose of the team is to develop young drivers. But what is surprising is that apparently it's Liam Lawson who is facing the axe at Racing Bulls, despite having such a good season. Lawson has been legitimately one of the top, 7 or 8 best drivers on the grid this year. He's been really good as Lawson. The surprise, really, of the season, I would say, as well. But if you believe those reports, it looks like Lawson, this could be his final year in Formula One, at least for now. But, whether those reports are true, who knows? But, yeah, looks like we're going to have 2 young drivers joining Formula One next year, Rafa Camara and Nikola Solov. If Liam Lawson, though, if he is deposed of his seat, I'm not sure where Lawson could go. Because if Haas do go and replace Ocon with Camara, I mean, realistically, where could he go? Cadillac? Is he willing to go to Cadillac and, drive around at the back of the field with them? I mean, looking at the other midfield teams, Williams look pretty locked in at the minute, I would say, with their driver lineup. Even though I'm pretty sure Carlos Sainz will be looking to get out of his contract, as soon as he can. But I'm not sure he will be able to get go anywhere for next season. Probably be the year after where he ends up going anywhere. I mean, you've got Audi, but, are Audi going to replace Hulkenberg or Bortoleto with Lawson? I really don't see that happening. And then, you've got Alpine. Maybe if Colapinto doesn't have a great season, maybe they'll replace Colapinto with Lawson. But that really all depends on what Colapinto does. And then you've got rumours at the minute that Fernando Alonso could end up going back to Alpine yet again for what would be a 4th run at the Edstone team. Obviously, it would be properly under Flavio Briatore, who has been his agent for, forever, basically. So that would really be a shame for Lawson if he is going to be kicked out of the team. Because with the way he's been performing, he definitely does not deserve to lose his seat. In fact, he's performing at a level at the minute where you'd probably look at him, if he had not already been at Red Bull, you'd say he probably deserves a chance at Red Bull. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But if Solov does replace Lawson at Racing Bulls, I really hope Lawson can find a seat for next year, because it would be a crime, really, for him not to be on the grid. Because with the way he's been performing, it would just be so wrong, quite frankly. Obviously, there's no point discussing Aston Martin as a possible place he could go, because Lance Stroll has a forever seat for obvious reasons. So, yeah. Those are the rumours at the minute. We will see how they develop. But, we could see a couple new young drivers entering Formula One very, very soon. One more thing, though, I wanted to just quickly get into was a channel update. So, of course, we've got this Austrian Grand Prix weekend. I'm streaming, as you can see right now. I will be, just to clarify, if you're unsure, I will be doing a race watch-along tomorrow. And I should be joined by Niblo, my co-commentator, as well. So yeah, that'll be good to do with him, and it should be a good race as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, next weekend is the British Grand Prix. Chances are that I will be doing both the qualifying and race stream for that as well. Not a guarantee, though, at the minute, because of uni commitments. So, yeah, I haven't decided as of yet what I'm doing officially content wise for the next Grand Prix at Silverstone, but I'll let you guys know, obviously, as soon as I decide. um so yeah, the next two Grand Prix obviously are back to back, and then we've got a 2 week break in between the British and Belgian Grand Prix. To be honest, because the summer break is only a month away from starting, I think at this point I am probably going to start working on my summer break content, because I do have an idea for a video that I could upload in between the British and Belgian Grand Prix, but then that would take time away from working on a video or two that I could end up actually making for the summer break instead. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to spend that break in between the British and Belgian Grand Prix making, say, a couple videos for that summer break period. There will be more than a couple videos in the summer break. I'll probably work and get to work on a couple more at the beginning of the summer break that will then come out later, say closer to the end of the summer break. But yeah, that is the plan in terms of like recorded video content. So between now and the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is in a month from now, it's just going to be race weekend content. Watchalongs, podcasts, the day after the race. That's all it's going to be for the next month. But then when we get to the summer break, there will be some videos. One of them will be, as usual, the mid-season driver ranking video, which I do every, or I have been for the last, I think, couple seasons now. Ranking the drivers so far for 2026. I will be uploading that. That'll probably be the first summer break video, say 3 or 4 days after the Hungarian Grand Prix. And then the other videos for the summer break, I haven't decided on yet, but there will be at least 2 more recorded videos for the summer break, maybe 3 more. But yeah, I'll let you guys know more details when I properly plan out what those other videos are going to be. But the first video will be the mid-season driver ranking video, which I very much enjoy doing, and I know you guys enjoy doing. I think another video as well I might do is a revised 2027 driver lineup prediction video, because remember I did one last summer, which, looking back now, was I wouldn't say ambitious, but a bit off in terms of what I predicted. I think there are a couple predictions I made that have come true, or will come true, such as Solov getting a seat at Racing Bulls. I still think Max will be driving for Mercedes next year. So yeah, I don't think I was totally wrong, but yeah, I think a revised prediction would probably be smart. So that'll probably be another video coming your way in the summer break, and then another video after that, or maybe another couple videos after that as well. So yeah, on the recorded video front, yeah, there won't be any between now and the Hungarian Grand Prix in a month from now. But then, like I said, when we get to the summer break, there should be at least 3, if not 4, recorded videos over the course of the summer break. And then, of course, we're back for the Dutch Grand Prix, which is on the penultimate weekend of August, I think. And then, strangely, we have a 2-week break between the Dutch and Italian Grand Prix, which feels weird to me because normally those races are back to back. But yeah, I think it's because of the Madrid race, but also this year's Dutch Grand Prix is the last Dutch Grand Prix, sadly. But what do you call it? Yeah. So that is essentially that is the content plan between now and the end of the summer break. So next 4 races that we've got, which are the 4 races left before the summer break, it'll just be, like I said, race weekend content, and then 3 or 4 videos in the summer break, and then we'll be back, obviously, with the race weekend content for the Dutch Grand Prix as we return from the month-long summer break. So that's your plan, content-wise, for the next, say, couple months. Mainly, as well, I am focusing on my uni work at the minute. I've got a very important next month or so coming up. So I will try my best to get those summer break videos ready as soon as possible, but I might struggle to get them uploaded, say, ideally I'd like it to be like once every 6 or 7 days during the summer break, or maybe even once every 5 days, but I might struggle with that given the amount of time I'm going to have to dedicate to my uni stuff. So we'll see. But yeah, that's the plan for the next couple months, pretty much until the end of the summer. As we've got 32 minutes now until the start of the session. So before I read some comments from you guys, which I will do for a few minutes, let me just have a quick sip of my drink. It is still quite hot in here in the southwest of England. Even though the heat's gone down, it's still, like I said, pretty hot, and I've got a window closed, which I haven't had my window closed for quite a while. So it feels quite hot, to be honest. But hopefully I can keep hydrated as we go through the stream. Let me read through the comments, though. And good to see all of you, as usual. Astro earlier saying put Piastri in the pole option. Yeah, if I could have done more than 4 options, I would have probably. But those are the 4 drivers that I put in the pole. Those are the 4 that I think are the most likely. But yeah, maybe I'll be wrong. Looney Classic says you have Max in the pole, but not Hamilton. The reason I don't have Hamilton in there is because this is typically one of Lewis's weaker circuits. I know, saying weaker circuits is quite funny with Lewis because he's still won this Grand Prix, I think, like 3 times or something like that. But yeah, historically speaking, this is one of his weaker tracks and a track where he does actually get beat quite regularly by teammates. So yeah, that's why I've not got Hamilton in there. Looney Classic says, with better downforce levels, Ferrari should have better tyre wear. In race trim, Ferrari looks like they have better tyre wear. I will say with Ferrari, even if they end up only 4th or 5th on the grid, which will be disappointing, I know, to some people, given obviously what happened in the last Grand Prix, managing your tyres is going to be very important tomorrow, again, because of the heat. And I am expecting at least a 2-stop race tomorrow. And the reason it'll be a 2-stop race is because normally what scuppers you doing an extra pit stop is getting held up in traffic. But it's, I wouldn't say very easy, but easy enough to overtake at this circuit to where doing an extra pit stop is not gonna hurt you. So I think we're going to see a minimum 2-stop race. We might even see a 3-stop race if it's really killing the tyres. But yeah, I think it'll be a 2-stop for tomorrow's race. And Ferrari tend to be, at the minute, pretty good at handling the tyres. Astro gives his prediction, which he says, I think this is more of his hopeful prediction. Piastri get pole, Hamilton second, and then Leclerc, Max, Russell, Kimi, Lando, Hadjar, Hulk, and Lindblad. Looney Classic saying Cadillac and Audi are being held back by their drivers. Let me just post a link of the stream out. Again. Cadillac, half so, yeah. I'd agree with that. I think Bottas definitely is not doing a good enough job. I think Perez, though, is having a good season. It's just the Cadillac is so far off the pace. Despite him starting out position on the grid twice in Monaco, I thought he was really good in Monaco. Hold on a sec. Comes on here to Watchalong qualifying in Austria. Hopefully we've got some more people jumping on soon. Yeah, we've talked about, Bottas is not quite performing. I mean, he's looked a tad better the last couple weekends, but this one and the last one, so seems to be improving, but yeah, overall so far it's not been good. I think Cadillac, I wouldn't be surprised if they replaced Bottas, to be honest, for next season with maybe an American driver, or maybe, if Liam Lawson is available on the market, maybe they'll go for him. Who knows? With Audi, they've had a very weird season of Audi. They've not been very reliable. Their power unit is decent. I wouldn't say it's bad. I mean, we have to remember this is the first year Audi have ever entered F1, built an engine, all of that. So I think where they're at is fine. I wouldn't say it's good, but it's fine. In terms of why they're ninth in the championship, I don't feel like it's a driver problem. Could they have better drivers? Yeah, sure they could. Pretty much every team on the grid could make that excuse, but I feel like the drivers are good enough with what is there. I don't feel like the drivers have underperformed really. I know Hulkenberg is sitting on 0 points, but I do think he's had a bit of bad luck. I mean, he definitely did at the last Grand Prix where Liam Lawson, the car ahead of him in the race, kicked up a stone that magically found its way to the kill switch on the side of his car and the switched Hulkenberg's power unit off. I mean, that is horrible luck when Hulkenberg was probably going to score a couple points at least. Yeah, I think Hulkenberg's been a bit unlucky. Bortoleto, I do feel, has not been as good this year in the races. I think qualifying wise, Bortoleto has been decent. But I think the problem with this Audi car, let me just clear my throat quick. I think the problem with the Audi car is it just isn't overall a fast enough package. If you compare it to the Alpine has a bit of a stronger power unit, and I think in general it's just a better car than the Audi. The Racing Bulls car has been a real surprise this season for everyone. And typically Audi are always like the second or third quickest midfield team, but are always like either just getting into the top 10 or always, or a lot of the time, just outside. So it's not like it's not like they're like Williams where they're miles off the pace. Yeah, if they had better drivers, maybe they'd score an extra few points, but I don't think fundamentally it would make a massive difference to their season. What they need to do is bring upgrades to improve this car, because the car is decent, but it is not good enough to score points week in, week out. That's why I think mostly why they are where they're at in 2026. A bit of it is, again, reliability trouble, but yeah, the pace just isn't quite there with Audi at the minute. So I think, let's wait until they get some upgrades properly going on this car, which I think they've brought some upgrades this weekend, so maybe we'll see a bit of an improvement in the next couple races. But yeah, Audi, I don't feel like it's a driver issue with them, put it that way. Right, I'm gonna, I think I'll read out a couple more comments, and then we'll get on to just doing a quick roundup of the teams going into qualifying. Blade Rise, good to see you, gives his prediction. Antonelli, Russell, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Piastri, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Lawson. I'd be surprised if Leclerc ends up ahead of Hamilton, given the way the weekend has gone so far. But yeah, that top 10, very likely, I think. Someone in the chat saying, why are there people whose qualifying has already started? I have no idea what you're talking about. Qualifying has not started. Qualifying does not start for another, 23 minutes. So I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. And then let me just quickly read out this comment from Messi X7S7T. Saying, if Leclerc can't beat Lewis this weekend, where else is he going to beat him, considering this is meant to be one of Lewis's weaker tracks and Leclerc's stronger ones? Well, if we assume that Lewis Hamilton is back to his best, then yeah, you very well could be right there, that if Leclerc can't beat Hamilton here, very much could be behind Hamilton for almost the rest of the season, pretty much. I mean, the next Grand Prix at Silverstone, Hamilton was quicker than Leclerc even last year. So Hamilton is definitely going to be the quickest Ferrari driver next weekend. Then you got Spa, which Hamilton's always been great at. I mean, Leclerc has too, but I wouldn't say Leclerc has been consistently great there. Hungary, obviously, that's one of Hamilton's best tracks in terms of pace. And historically speaking, when it comes to pole positions, race wins, maybe Zandvoort is one where Leclerc can be ahead. Baku is another one where Leclerc is really quick and Hamilton is not as great. Obviously, Madrid, who knows what's going to happen there. I'm not looking forward to that Grand Prix, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen, what was it? They've released the 2026 DLC on the F1 2025 game. And the Madrid track, I saw a clip of someone playing it on the F1 game, and it just looks so bad. I can tell you categorically right now, we will not be doing a race watch along for that race. No chance. I will do a qualifying stream, but I am not doing a race watch along. No chance. That track is, it's one of the worst I've ever seen. It is so bad. There is one part of the track I like, which is like a banked, overly kind of bit. Kind of reminds me of a part of that India track we used to go to. But yeah, overall, that Madrid circuit is just utter wank, quite frankly. So yeah, who knows at that track? But yeah, Baku, Las Vegas. There's a couple circuits where I think Leclerc can beat Hamilton, but yeah, assuming Hamilton's back to his best, then yeah, most of the time it's gonna be Lewis number one at that team. I am really looking forward to seeing what Hamilton can do next week at Silverstone, because that track, one, will suit the Ferrari car a bit more than this one, and I think Hamilton will be right in the action for at least a podium. But yeah, I think we will go on to a quick roundup of the teams before we get into any more comments. So keep your comments coming, and I will get to more of them in a moment. But let's do a roundup quick. Mercedes, yeah, they've got the quickest car by about 2 to 3 tenths. As long as both drivers deliver their best laps in Q3, it should be a front row lockout. I just don't see it being anything other than that. To be fair, I did kind of say that at the last Grand Prix in Spain, and then Lewis Hamilton pulled out a lap from nowhere to get second. That was, though, a surprise at the time, no doubt. But yeah, with the way it's looking this weekend, I just don't see any team being able to stop Mercedes from locking out the front row, given just the pace they're showing, and both drivers are clearly on it. So yeah, Mercedes, if they're not looking out the front row, then it'd be a poor session for them, really. Will there be a big jump in performance from Ferrari, just like we saw in Spain? I really hope there is. I mean, we saw it was like a half a second gain in performance from practice to qualifying. If they do that again, maybe we'll see a Ferrari on the front row again. Not quite sure they'll get pole, but yeah, we could see a big, a result for the Ferrari team. I really hope that does happen, but I don't think realistically it's going to. They will be closer than they were in Friday practice, no doubt about it. They're not going to be 6 tenths of a second off the pace, but they are just missing fundamentally that 2 to 3 tenths that you need, I think, to be fighting Mercedes properly for pole position. They just, even with an upgraded engine, they still don't have the power that Mercedes do. But maybe I'll be wrong. I really hope I'll be wrong. But yeah, just not quite on the same pace this weekend. Red Bull, I was really hopeful about them coming into this Grand Prix. Obviously, their home race as a team. With the car they've got, the type of car they've got, I really thought this could be a good Grand Prix for them. But, I mean, I wouldn't say they look slow, but they don't look as quick as I expected. I'll be honest. I thought they would be 2 to 3 tenths better off than what we've seen so far. Red Bull, really, I think the aim for them has got to be get in amongst the McLarens and the Ferrari cars in terms of pace, and then let Max work his magic. And if he can, maybe they can get, say, third on the grid, which is indeed where I predict him to finish, because so many times Max does work his magic. So that's what I think will happen. But yeah, Red Bull, I think, really quite reliant on Max Verstappen for this session. McLaren, good car, not good enough to be fighting for pole, but a good car. And a car really that should be on the second row of the grid. I think they'll get one car on the second row, but can they get both cars onto the second row? That is the real question. It's going to be tough because they will be so close on lap time with Ferrari and Red Bull. It's going to come down to a pure driver fight, and that does favour Max and Lewis in their respective cars because they are better drivers than the two McLaren ones. But who knows? Maybe McLaren will maintain a healthy advantage to those two teams like they did in Friday practice. That very well could happen. But I think what is likely to happen, most likely to happen, is what we kind of saw in Spain, where McLaren were quick in practice, but then dropped off by a couple tenths or so back in more so to the pack. I think that's more likely what happens in this session. Into the midfield teams, Audi, they can definitely get into the top 10, but I don't think they've got a quick enough car. Alpine and Racing Bulls, I think, are quicker. I think, 11th place has been really their position this season. And yeah, I think that's likely to be the best they can get in this session, unfortunately. Haas look decent with at least Oliver Behrman. He's not that far off the top 10 with the pace he's shown so far. But yeah, Haas still lacking a bit of straight line speed to really compete where they need to be at. Racing Bulls, yet again, looking good. Always good, this car around power tracks like this one is. And yeah, Racing Bulls, I'm pretty confident will have at least one car in the top 10. And same goes for Alpine, really, also looking good. Pierre Gasly, remember, has always been pretty quick here at the Red Bull Ring. And Alpine, I don't see why their car wouldn't be quick here. It's a car that really should suit this track well. So I think Gasly makes the top 10 in Colapinto. Hopefully for Alpine, will be not too far behind. Williams, surprisingly quite far off the pace. Looking at the pace so far, I think they're probably looking at a double Q1 elimination. That would be a disaster. But looking at the running so far, that's what it looks like is probably likely to happen, unfortunately, for Williams. Aston Martin will be knocked out in Q1 and will be the slowest team. Cadillac will also be knocked out in Q1, but they have brought a lot of upgrades this weekend, so watch out for them, and we'll keep our eye to see how close they are to getting into the top, what do you call it? The top, top 16, say Q2. Because I think, if they're not that far away, then it really could show a real good amount of progression from Cadillac. And here is my prediction for qualifying for the top 10. Mercedes, I think, will look out the front row. Antonelli on pole for Russell second, and then Max Verstappen, I'm going in third, with Norris fourth, Hamilton fifth, Piastri sixth, Hadjar seventh, Leclerc eighth, Gasly ninth, and Liam Lawson in P10. So that's my top 10 prediction. Let me know your predictions, guys, as we have only got 12 minutes to go until qualifying is underway. This stream's absolutely zipped by so far. And I will get on to reading a few more of your comments, so keep them coming in the live chat. But I'm just waiting for the next minute to tick over so I can get the timer back on the screen. And there you go. So 12 more minutes until we are underway. Vettel Hamilton saying Madrid is only on the calendar because Gunther Steiner convinced the FIA to race in Madrid. Did he? I'm not sure if I've heard of that. I'm not. Yeah, I don't remember hearing about that. To be fair, the Madrid race was added a few years ago, so who knows? But yeah, I've looked at the onboard of the circuit. Yeah, it's just a rubbish track. I think the only positive is that, thank goodness that we have these cars and not last year's ultra wide cars, because the track is in certain parts is just ridiculous with the way it flows and the narrowness of the walls as well. Again, it's just ridiculous. I really don't think we're going to get any racing around that track. I think qualifying could be interesting at that Madrid circuit, because I think we could get very much quite a few drivers in the wall because of how narrow it is in certain parts. But yeah, it's just not a good track at all. It really isn't. And it's a result of Formula One forcing the issue in terms of, we know they're desperate for street races. And the reason they're desperate for street races, by the way, is because to the casual, to the person that is kind of interested in F1 and, maybe watches the odd race here and there, a race in Madrid sounds more appealing than a race in Montmello, which is where the Circuit de Catalunya is. So that's why they're pushing for these street races in big cities, because it will bring in those casual viewers who don't quite understand that actually street circuit races are actually most of the time quite bad, and that the only thing really of value that you can take out of those Grand Prix is not even all of them, but some of them is qualifying. Say at tracks like Monaco and Singapore, tracks like that. So yeah, they've forced a Madrid race, and this is what they've come up with. But yeah, it just should not be happening at all. Saying that, I will in turn praise Liberty Media, because they have recently added a couple races to the calendar that I was very much hoping would be back on the calendar. For example, next year we will see the return of the Portuguese Grand Prix at the Portimao circuit in the Algarve. Very good news. I love that circuit. I think it's brilliant. And the long-awaited return of Istanbul Park is, I think, is it next year that's back on the calendar. So yeah, I cannot wait for that. And hopefully we'll actually get a dry race there. I mean, I know we had a classic wet weekend there in 2020, but that was because the track was resurfaced right before the Grand Prix happened, and that's why it made the surface so slippery. But we had that race the year after in 2021 where that's what made the race not a great one, the 2021 race, because how slippery the surface was. Even when it stopped raining and it technically dried up, the surface was so slippery that the drivers couldn't afford to go onto dry tires. It was just so ridiculous. So I'm hoping that the track surface will actually be a bit more normal, I guess, than it was. I am also wondering when are they going to schedule the Turkish Grand Prix? Because it used to be, when it was permanently on the calendar, we had it in August. Used to be the first race back from the summer break. Then they moved it to May. But then when it came back on the calendar, it was in October. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure. Let me just have a quick look. Is there a 2027 calendar? I don't think there is, as of yet. Normally, I don't think we're far away. I think another maybe month at most away from a calendar being released. The only other detail I know regarding next year is that Bahrain will be the opening race of next season. So I think it'll be Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Australia, and then probably Japan, China, or China and then Japan. Something like that. There is I've just looked, and there is a calendar floating around on Instagram, but it doesn't look like a confirmed calendar. It looks like someone, or one that someone's just made up. Yeah, it doesn't look like a real calendar, but according to this one, the Turkish Grand Prix would be in September, and the Portuguese Grand Prix would be in June. But I don't know if that's actually true. And yeah, there hasn't been anything from Formula One in regards to even a provisional date as of yet. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully soon as to what the calendar will be for next season. But we are just a few more minutes away. Just under 5 more minutes now So let me just find a couple more comments if I can. Earlier in the chat, Astro saying, I don't think Ocon is finished yet. I reckon and hope he can bounce back. I think he's got to that part of his career where he just can't deliver what he used to as regularly as he used to. He did have a really good drive in Monaco where he finished in 9th from like 17th on the grid. But yeah, he just, I believe he can score points, but he just can't do it as regular as he used to, where he used to be in the points, so often. Practically every race if he was in like a good midfield team. But yeah, he's just not able to do it as much anymore, and that's why he's up for being replaced by the looks of it. But thanks for your comments. Make sure to keep them coming through the session as we are just moments away from the start of qualifying. Let's get into, though, a couple bits of detail before we get into the session itself. And we'll look at the championship standings coming into round 8 of the 2026 Formula 1 season. Kimi Antonelli, his gap at the top has closed quite a bit after his DNF and Lewis Hamilton's win. He is only 41 points clear of the 7 times world champion. George Russell in 3rd, only 50 points behind his young teammate now. Leclerc in 4th. Lando Norris only a couple points behind in 5th. Piastri 6th. Max Verstappen 7th, Pierre Gasly in 8th, Isaac Hadjar 9th, and Liam Lawson still in the top 10. And on the constructor side, Mercedes are only about 70 points clear of Ferrari. It's still relatively close at this point of the year. McLaren in 3rd, Red Bull 4th, Alpine comfortably enough in 5th. Racing Bulls, what a season they've had so far, in 6th, and 20 points clear of Haas, 30 points clear even of Williams, who are in 8th. Audi 9th, and Audi pretty much 40 points behind Racing Bulls. Aston Martin, of course, 10th on 1 point from the Monaco Grand Prix. And then Cadillac at the back on 0. And there you go. There are your standings coming into this Grand Prix weekend. And yeah, qualifying should be underway in, I think, 2 more minutes we've got. So get ready, guys, for what should be a good session. Ofdriz says, hello, Chazza. Hello to you. Says, with the Ferrari package right now, do you think, good enough to challenge them tomorrow for the race? And Silverstone, obviously, they have to qualify well. If they qualify where I've predicted them to qualify, say 5th, I don't think that's good enough for them to fight for the win. Silverstone, though, if it's hot next week for Silverstone, which, let me just check the weather for next week's British Grand Prix. Yeah, next weekend at Silverstone is, hot and sunny. If they're on the second row of the grid, I don't see why Ferrari can't maybe, fight for the win. But it really depends on the gap in qualifying. They need to be within a certain amount of, lap time, because even if you manage your tyres better, at the end of the day, you need to have the lap time to go with it. So yeah, I think it's possible. And very much interested to see what Ferrari can do at the next Grand Prix at Silverstone. As we've got another 25 seconds until the session begins. There on the TV broadcast, we're looking at Oscar Piastri, who's had a good weekend. He very nearly won this Grand Prix last year. Probably should have won this Grand Prix last year. And if he had, could have made a big difference to the championship. Not necessarily for him, but in terms of who won it. As there you go, qualifying has officially begun. in Austria, as there the Cadillac struggling to get out of the pit lane, but now he does. The qualifying underway at the Red Bull Ring. And the first car on track is Esteban Ocon in the Haas. Ocon has actually been pretty good here in the past. He finished 5th here. I think, was it 2022? So, good history. I think he's been in the points quite frequently at this track. As out come the two Aston Martins, who will obviously be knocked out in Q1. As big crowd in for this at the track. And I'm sure much of the Verstappen army is in attendance. Not quite as boisterous as they probably would have been a year or even 2 or 3 years ago, given that their man is 100 points behind in the championship. But they will still will him on, as we're looking at George Russell, who has won this Grand Prix before. And there is Kimi Antonelli in the garage still. Antonelli last year didn't have a great qualifying, and then he punted Max Verstappen and himself out of the race on the first lap. But here is Esteban Ocon starting his first qualifying run. The tyres this weekend, by the way, are the 3 softest tyres that Pirelli have. The C5, the C4 and the C3. Which, given the heat, really does mean I think we're going to have a 2-stop race tomorrow. So tyres, once again, just like the last Grand Prix, are going to be a big talking point. As Ocon, decent lap so far. The best lap time of the weekend so far is a 1:07.0 from Kimi Antonelli. That's about the best lap time I would expect in this session, to be honest. As Ocon just coming through the final couple corners to the line and does a 1:09.0, which is okay, I would say. Not too bad. So let me just put him up at the top as he goes half a second quicker than Sergio Perez, his ex-sparring partner. And Valtteri Bottas is in 3rd as George Russell has started a lap. To get into Q2, I think you're going to need to do, I would say, a 1:08.5 or better. So Ocon there. I mean, for a first run, I think that's decent at best. But I think Ocon, yeah, if he can improve by half a second or more, then he should make it through to the second part of qualifying. As obviously Russell's done a purple first sector. Nico Hulkenberg is now quickest for Audi. As George Russell is about to go quickest. Let's see what the first lap time on the board is for the Mercedes. 1:07.8. Yep, that's an okay lap there for Russell. Obviously, that lap already good enough to get him into Q2. So Russell P1. As we're looking down, Max Verstappen, who has ruled this circuit ever since his first win here 8 years ago. That win he had in 2018. That 2019 win, which I remember us covering it here on the channel. I remember us doing a watch-along for the both qualifying and the race. And yeah, that was 7 years ago. How time flies. As Max does a purple first sector. Albon is up to P4. And Carlos Sainz is up to 5th. And then you've got the 2 Aston Martins just behind the 2 Cadillacs at the minute. As Max Verstappen, purple middle sector. This is a good run from Max to start the session. And, that's a very good lap time. A 107.4, 4/10 quicker than George Russell. As Isaac Hadjar comes across the line and goes 1,000th of a second slower. Very good start for Red Bull, first and second. Norris now goes a 10.5 quicker. These are some very quick lap times, I must say, for the early part of Q1. Lando Norris quickest on a 107.2. As Charles Leclerc has gone 4th, Lewis Hamilton has gone 2nd and only about 0.03 of a second slower than Lando Norris. So it's Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen. Hadjar is up in 4th place. And then you've got Piastri in 5th. And then Leclerc 6th for Ferrari. And then Russell 7th. Gasly is in 8th for Alpine. And then just behind him is Arvid Lindblad in the Racing Bulls. He's up in P9. Not anymore, because Oliver Behrman's now in 9th, and then Liam Lawson has gone ahead of his teammate up into 10th place. Let me just update that. Behrman up to 9th as Antonelli goes quickest with a 107.0 straight out of the blocks. Brilliant lap. Nearly 0.2 quicker than Norris. Just proving how quick the Mercedes is. So Antonelli is quickest. Lawson is in 11th place. As this is Russell starting a new lap. Colapinto is up to 13th. And then you got Hulkenberg 14th, Ocon 15th, Albon 16th. And in the drop zone, Sainz, Perez, Bottas, Alonso, Stroll, Bortoleto. But Bortoleto is on a lap, and you would obviously expect him to get into Q2. As we've got just under 9 minutes to go in Q1. The top 4 teams already safely through. Pierre Gasly has done a 1 minute 8.0. I think he's safely through as well. To be honest, I think the top 13 or even top 14 cars at the minute look like they're already through to Q2. Bortoleto should be completing his first lap soon, so he'll get into the top 16 as Russell stays in 8th. Nearly half a second down on his teammate as Bortoleto goes ahead of his teammate and up to 14th place. As Carlos Sainz goes with an improved lap up to 16th. Alex Albon now goes ahead of Sainz up to 16th place. As we're now looking at Fernando Alonso in the worst car of all time, I think we have to say at this point. And Alonso does a lap, but stays 21st. Bottas goes up to 19th ahead of Ocon. Ocon, though, has not done a new lap yet. As Hulkenberg understeering horribly through turn 6. But he's on a better lap. This is probably going to put him around 11th, 12th place. Currently in 15th. As still not great handling there through the final corner, but he comes to the line. He stays in 15th, so really bad final sector there. Only 2.5 tenths clear of the drop zone, so he will have to go again to make sure that he gets through. But the lap time he's done at the minute is a 108.5, which I still think is good enough to get into Q2. So he might still get through with the lap time he's already done, but he'll need an extra couple tenths, I think, to make sure. Bortoletto, his teammate, I think is probably just about done enough. But yeah, the top 13, 14 cars, by the looks of it, have already done enough to get through. So we're just focusing on really from Hulkenberg down. And yeah, they're showing a replay on board of Hulkenberg. I think he turned in probably a bit too early to the final corner. Bumped a bit too hard over the entry curb. As everyone in the pits, except for Nico Hulkenberg, who is, I think, on his way back to the pits. Just like we saw at the last Grand Prix, because of the heat, you can't do more than one lap on the same tyre, really. It is one lap per compound. And saving tyres for tomorrow's race definitely will be important. As George Russell saying on the radio, just a bit similar to the FP3 runs, 4-wheel sliding. They're clearly not happy there. He's currently half a second slower than Antonelli, which is, yeah, pretty bad. And yeah, we await to see when the rest of the cars will come out. Isaac Hadjar has come on an outlap. Max Verstappen is still, looks like he's not going out again, quite frankly. He's not got his helmet on or really his overalls properly on. But Hadjar has gone back out there, probably just to get some more confidence because he's been struggling a bit more. But yeah, really, in terms of getting into the next part of qualifying, it's really between the two Williamses, the Haas of Ocon, and maybe the Audi of Hulkenberg. But I'd say Williams are really the team we're focusing on to see, will they have both cars eliminated in Q1, which would be such a disappointment on a track like this, where the overweight issue and lack of downforce issue should not be hampering them as much here, but they have been really quite slow. I am assuming, though, for Williams that they've got a big upgrade coming at the next Grand Prix at Silverstone, which is obviously next weekend. Home Grand Prix. Normally, they do bring an upgrade for their home Grand Prix. So, hopefully, they will shed a bit of the weight and improve the downforce level to at least finish the season in decent form. But really, I think if I'm Williams, I would bring that upgrade. If it's a big upgrade, great. But after that upgrade, if I'm Williams, I'm focusing entirely on next year's car, because even if that upgrade improves them by half a second, they're still going to be struggling to score big points. And they're probably only going to finish probably where they are in the championship, which is 8th, maybe 7th at best. So yeah, if I was Williams, I think after this next big upgrade at Silverstone, I think I'd start focusing on next year's car. And very much I do expect Williams next year to be a lot better. As this is Isaac Hadjar on another lap. He's not improved either of his sectors so far. And he comes to the line and doesn't improve, so that's a wasted lap. As most cars now back out on track. As McLaren there looking at some sort of issue. And we're looking at a McLaren of Oscar Piastri, who's also on a lap which is not an improvement, but he's backed off and looks like he's coming into the pits. As Colapinto is on an improved lap. He's in 13th. He should be safe. And yeah, he's improving his lap time anyway by quite a bit. Esteban Ocon is on an improved lap, but he's only slightly up on the time Albon's done through the middle sector by about 0.03 of a second. So this will be very close for Ocon. As Colapinto goes 9th. So he's definitely through. Here comes Esteban Ocon, who goes 13th. Brilliant final sector. And Ocon, I think, has got through, surely, with that lap time. So both Williams is in the drop zone now as Sainz gets a load of oversteer on the exit of the final corner. He goes up to 14th. That's a good lap despite that oversteer moment. Alex Albon stays 18th. He's out. Arvid Lindblad, he was down there quite a bit, but he's now gone up to 8th. As Bortoletto touching the gravel slightly. Audi under pressure, 16th and 17th. Surely they can get both cars into Q2. Hulkenberg is doing a good lap. Bortoletto, though, comes to the line. He goes 12th. I think that's good enough. Someone else has improved. It's Liam Lawson who's got up to 4th place. As Hulkenberg goes 15th. And that pushes the other Williams of Sainz out. So both Williams cars are out in Q1. As George Russell goes 5th. Is Valtteri Bottas, who stays in 20th. Hold on a sec, let me put Alonso back down. There you go. So Perez has ended up 19th, Bottas 20th, and then Aston Martin a second slower than Cadillac. What a joke. And a joke really for Williams. Both cars eliminated in Q1. Such disappointment. But that's Q1, guys, over and done with. Let's go through who has made it through to Q2. Antonelli, Norris, Hamilton, Lawson, Russell, Verstappen, Hadjar, Piastri, Leclerc, Lindblad, Colapinto, Bortoletto, Gasly, Behrman, Hulkenberg and Ocon. And knocked out in Q1, Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. And Q2 will be underway shortly. No surprise about the Cadillac Aston Martin situation. Williams, though, not surprising either for them, but I really was hoping they would get at least one car into Q2, but no. they just can't. They're just too slow. 17th and 18th on the grid. How many times last year were they up in the top 10? Remember, Williams had 2 podiums last season. If they got a podium this season, they'd cry tears of joy. It'd feel like winning the championship compared to where they are at the minute. They are... I think Williams have got to be the most disappointing team of the season. I know people might say Audi, but Audi are completely new into Formula 1. Given that Williams have got the Mercedes engine, which is the really, I still think is probably the best engine on the grid. Just about overall, not just the ICE. For them to be this slow is a disaster. It really is. Imagine if they had the Ferrari or the Audi power unit. They'd be fighting nearly with Cadillac. That car is a disaster of a car. It really is. I made early 2026 predictions back in January, and I even predicted Williams finished, I think, 3rd in the championship. That's how confident I was that Williams would be good this season, because they had such a good year last year. They said that they gave up early on the development of last year's car to work on this year's car. They had the Mercedes power unit, which I think we all knew going into this year was going to be good. Yeah, I mean, actually, well, to be fair, I think the biggest disappointment obviously has to be Aston Martin, but they are so disappointing and terrible that I think most of us forget that they're even a team at this point. I think they have really saved Williams from getting a lot of rightly deserved criticism, because Williams are nowhere near good enough, and it's really poor what we've seen from Williams this year. Can't blame it on the drivers. The drivers, I think, have done a good job. I think Carlos Sainz, for example, has had a pretty good season, but the car is just rubbish. As they're showing onboard replays of the Williams, and it just looks like a boat. Doesn't go into the corners, just no grip. And then, when they go around some of those longer corners, they're just doing a wall of death, trying to hang on for dear life. As, just a replay there of Sainz having that oversteer moment at the final corner. And then I think they're just showing a replay here of Bortoletto having a bit of a wide moment. But thankfully for Audi, they got both cars through. Didn't look too great, though, I must say. Rick saying Lawson obviously heard that rumour that he's due to be replaced. Yeah, must have. Because that was out of nowhere. We haven't seen any of the midfield teams even get close to the front runners on lap time. So for him to go up to 4th is incredible. As current track conditions, if you're wondering, it is 33 degrees Celsius for the air temperature, and the track temperature is 52 degrees Celsius. It is absolutely searingly hot, and amazingly not as hot as it is here in the UK. I think the UK has been, in the last week or so, one of the hottest places on earth. I saw a post on X of someone in London where it's been really, like, disgustingly hot, like 37, 38, or nearly 40 degrees Celsius. Someone walked around with a thermal camera, and they recorded the pavement temperature at 57 degrees Celsius. That is just astonishing. I'm surprised we haven't had roads melting at this point. as the heat really is going to affect this Grand Prix, and it will I think have an effect on the next Grand Prix at Silverstone. Not as hot. It's not scheduled to be as hot at the British Grand Prix. It will be a few degrees cooler, but still hot, late 20s, and the track temperature will probably be in the mid 40s. It'll still be a hot one, and plus, Silverstone track wears out the tyres a lot more than this one does. So I think next weekend, I think we're in for at least a 2-stop race. Maybe even a 3-stop if it's really bad. As Q2 has begun, but we've got no cars on track. They're all trying to save some tyres. And there you go. 14 minutes to go in Q2. And let me just get up the other graphics. So we've knocked out the 6 slowest. Now we knock out the next 6 slowest cars. Who will they be? Very likely, I'd imagine the 2 Haas's, probably the 2 Audis as well, and then one of the Alpines and one of the Racing Bull cars. I think is pretty likely that's what it will be. Rook's saying, well, it's a good thing if it gives us more stops and potentially more strategy. Absolutely. I mean, that really is what made the last Grand Prix in Barcelona so good, was the difference on strategy between Ferrari and Mercedes. I mean, it might be a bit harder for that to happen tomorrow because I think everyone is pretty much going to be doing as many stops as each other. I think, again, everyone pretty much is going to be doing a 2-stop. I'd be surprised if anyone went for a 3-stop. I think you'd have to really have some pace to pull that off. But who knows? Maybe someone will try a 3-stop. As here is Lando Norris starting his first lap of Q2. So the fastest lap time in Q1 was a 1:07.0 from Antonelli. The pole position time today is probably going to be a mid 1:06, like a 1:06.5 or a 1:06.4. Something like that. So if Norris can, say with this first lap of Q2, if he can do a low 1:07, given that these are probably used tyres, then that'd be a good first run for Lando, who has always been very quick here. He dominated qualifying last year. He was on pole by nearly half a second. Didn't dominate the race, though, but he did end up winning it. As he comes through. Final couple corners, gets a bit of oversteer on the final corner. And he does a 1:07.3. That's a good lap time. Is it great? Probably not, but it's good. It puts him right in contention, right in the mix. As we're looking at, I think, Max on an outlap. Yeah, it is. Can Max showcase the improvements of the Red Bull in these next few minutes? Did a good first lap in Q1 and then never did another lap. So let's see what Max can do here. As the rear wing opens. That Red Bull rear wing still makes me laugh. It's just so comically big. Like when you compare it to the Mercedes rear wing, it's like they're in a different formula almost. It's funny. But it's been helping Red Bull. As Max did a purple first sector, 10th quicker than Lando Norris. Leclerc's done a very good first sector, 2/10 quicker than Norris. As Verstappen about 700ths up on Norris. This is a good lap from Verstappen. What's the final sector like? This is where Red Bull been struggling. Probably their worst sector so far of the entire track. But it looks good from Max through those final couple corners where he's always so quick. To the line, a 107.1. That is a very good lap time. And that is going to put the cat amongst the pigeons as Hadjar only goes 1/10 of a second slower. That's a good lap from him. He goes up to second. Here's Charles Leclerc. To the line. Goes quickest, a 107.0. Very good lap. Leclerc finally coming alive a bit. As here is his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Looking like he's back to the Hamilton of old, which you've all been wishing for quite a while. And he comes to the line and he goes second by 9 thousandths of a second. It is the gap between him and his teammate in Leclerc's favour. As Lawson has gone sixth, only half a second off the pace, Lawson. And Lindblad only a tenth slower than him. So both racing bull cars looking quick. As Oliver Behrman goes ahead of his teammate Esteban Ocon up to 8th for now. Here comes Pierre Gasly, who goes 6th on a 107.5. Great lap time. As Colapinto goes 9th. Yeah, Alpine and the Racing Bulls team really dominating that midfield. Antonelli, good lap. A 10th up on Leclerc after the first two sectors. Hulkenberg goes 11th. Bortoleto goes up to 9th. As here comes Antonelli to the line. Oh, what a lap that is. A 106.7. Have that. As Piastri goes second on a 106.8. A brilliant lap from him. But, wow. Antonelli has just hit it out of the park with that lap. That is a stunner. And yeah, Piastri up to second. Russell has not set a lap time yet. As we can see the replay with Alpine there, I think losing a bit of grip. Here's, I think, why Russell hasn't set a lap. He locked up the inside front going into turn 3 and went a bit too wide. And Russell has not done a time, so he's come back into the pits. He better make sure he gets back out there pretty quick so he doesn't get caught out by any yellow or red flags. But if everyone was on fresh tyres in the top 7 for that run, then yeah, Mercedes looking good and Piastri looking very good. But I'm not sure everyone was on fresh tyres. But at the minute, making the top 10 with 6 minutes to go in Q2 is sorry, let me do that again before my throat cuts out. Antonelli, Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Hadjar, Norris, Gasly, Lawson, Lindblad. And then in the drop zone, Bortoleto, Colapinto, Behrman, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and Russell. Russell will make the top 10 surely, so really, the only two midfield runners making it at the minute are Gasly and Lawson, who are the two that I predicted to make it as well. And have been the two standout drivers from the midfield as well this year of Gasly and Lawson, at least in the championship. Good to see, though, Charles Leclerc coming to the party. Right on pace with his teammate at least, and well, slightly quicker. as we are looking at Lando Norris, who is back out on track. And George Russell on track as well. As Russell comes down to turn 4, as Russell told on the radio, George, just drive. And I can't hear the radio, but I know from reading that message that that was surely from Toto Wolff. Because that just by looking at that message in terms of what was said, you know, the subtitles, that looks like a Toto Wolff message. So the message is clear. Just drive. As Lando Norris, a bit further ahead, is getting on with it. If Piastri can get that close to Antonelli, makes you think maybe what Lando can do, because Lando, again, is normally the quicker McLaren driver around this circuit. As Russell has started his lap. As Norris, we're just watching on the little mini screen, is just going through turn 6. And he's done a purple middle sector. This is a great lap from Lando Norris. And he is showing McLaren's capabilities right here. As Lando comes to the line. Not a great final sector, but he does go third. But McLaren are quick. There can be no doubt about that. As George Russell, I don't think has had the greatest of laps, to be honest. He goes 4th, but he's 2/10 off his teammates. So good lap, but I feel like that could have been better. But it doesn't really matter because this is all about getting into Q3, and he has done that. As we're now looking at Charles Leclerc on a new lap. If those first laps from Ferrari in Q2 were on used tyres, then my goodness, they are quick. But let's see if they've got any more pace. Leclerc, 0.5 tenth down on Antonelli for the first sector. Hamilton slightly quicker than Leclerc by about 3.5 hundredths. As Leclerc now racing down to turn 6. Gets the front end in nicely. And he is 1.5 tenths down on Antonelli. It's a better lap, but not much better, I would say. Hamilton, though, feels like he's on a bit of a better lap. As Leclerc round the final corner to the line. Doesn't improve. Final sector was way off. Isaac Hadjar's on a better lap. Watch out for him. As Lewis Hamilton goes 5th. Max Verstappen has decided to stay in the pits, which I think he'll be fine. But his teammate Isaac Hadjar improves his lap time quite a bit and goes ahead of him up to 7th. Hadjar only 0.3 off the pace. Max still in the pits as Lawson goes 8th. Red Bull better hope they've got this right. As Lindblad goes 9th, I think Red Bull might be in trouble. Because he's right on the cusp now, and Pierre Gasly, if he's on a good lap, might just knock Max Verstappen out because Max does not have any time to get out there and do a lap. As Behrman goes 11th. He's out. Ocon has gone 13th. He's out. Hulkenberg goes 13th. He is out in Q2. Here comes Bortoletto as Gasly's 2,000s up on Verstappen. After the first 2 sectors as Bortoletto 11th. That is Audi's favourite position in 2026 as here comes Pierre Gasly! Oh no, he goes 11th. Red Bull have got away with it. He missed out by 0.04 of a second, and Red Bull, no, they took a big risk there. But thankfully for Max, he's got through and he has saved a set of tyres for tomorrow's race. The risk that has paid off for the team. But that's Q2. Over and done with. Let's go through your drivers who've made it through to the top 10 shootout. Kimi Antonelli, Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Isaac Hadjar, Liam Lawson, Arvid Lindblad, and Max Verstappen. And knocked out in Q2, Pierre Gasly, Gabriel Bortoleto, Oliver Behrman, Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Franco Colapinto. And Q3, we underway in about 3 or 4 minutes' time. Big congratulations, though, to Racing Bulls getting both cars into the top 10. That is a brilliant result from them. And 9th and 10th is where they will end up, surely. And that will be a good starting position. And don't see why they can't score at least a couple points in tomorrow's race. But yeah, for Max, that might pay off big time tomorrow for saving a set of tyres. So watch out for him tomorrow. But now it's all about the top 10 and the fight for pole position. I still think the favourite is Antonelli for pole. And clearly, you guys do as well. Because the poll has finished in the chat. 165 votes. Thank you guys for voting. I asked you guys who will take pole position for the Austrian Grand Prix. And 61% of the vote has gone to Kimi Antonelli, who wins it. And I agree. I think Antonelli will take pole position. I think it's just too quick in what is the fastest car this weekend. Max Verstappen, second with 18% of the vote. Russell, third with 15%. And then Norris, fourth with 6%. But in the next 15 minutes or so, we are going to find out who will take pole for the Austrian Grand Prix. Pole position here is not that important, really. I mean, if you look at the history of this Grand Prix, as long as really you're on the front row, then you know you're in play, let's say. So if Antonelli does get pole, that's great. But if a McLaren or Ferrari or even Max can get onto the front row, could set them up nicely for possibly the win tomorrow, which is obviously what it's all about, setting yourself up for the race. As Gasly on the radio saying that felt like a very good lap, tell me we're through. And he was told, no, sorry, we did not make it. As Behrman saying on the radio, oh, that was all she had, really, guys. That was a really pretty good lap. Sorry. No need for him to apologise. The Haas car just isn't quick enough right now. 13th, though, from him is actually... I think that's a decent result. So, yeah, I don't think he should be too hard on himself. The car just isn't quick enough to be in the top 10 at the minute, at least in qualifying. But it is now, like I said, all about the top 10 shootout. And if Antonelli does take pole, then yeah, it's really interesting to see just how that top 8 will shake out. Because if you do not get your final lap right, you could end up losing 3 or 4 positions just like that. The gap is really so small up at the front. You really have got to get it right if you want to be at the sharp end of the grid here. You know, it's one of those tracks where, you know, a lost lap, a lap where you don't improve your lap time, could end up destroying your qualifying and your weekend, really. I think even Max Verstappen had that last year where he didn't do a good final lap, ended up like 6th or 7th on the grid, and then he ended up in the pack, which put him at risk of being collected by another car, and that's exactly what happened. So it's absolutely crucial. Given how close it is to get your laps right in this session. As there, we're looking at the racing balls, I think, of Lindblad. Another Q3 appearance. Lindblad's having a good debut season. I still feel like he's going under the radar a bit, is Arvid. But yeah, he's having a good debut season. The car's good. We can't deny that. It is a good car, but at the end of the day, you have to deliver. And he's delivering most times. So, yeah, Red Bull have got another good talent there. But we now will wait for the start of Q3. As the green light has gone on, so the session has begun, but there are no cars entering the fast lane of the pit lane. They're going to wait just, I reckon, a minute or so before they get out there. It'll only be 2 runs, 1 run per compound, obviously. Racing Bulls, I think, probably will do a lap towards the end of the session. I don't think they'll do 2 runs. I don't think they've got enough tyres left, to be honest. As we look at the badge of the Ferrari on the end of the nose cone. And there is, on the broadcast, Oscar Piastri. Second in Q2, looking good. Thing is, though, he was looking good in Spain in qualifying and then didn't do a good final lap, and then his weekend unravelled from there. So needs to make sure he gets it right this time if he wants to be in the thick of it for the race. As apologies, I messed up the I forgot to sync up the timer. I will make sure to do so in 30 seconds time. I'll sync it up at the 11-minute mark, as we've got 11 minutes and 25 seconds to go in qualifying. And still all the cars in the garage. As we see the McLaren pit wall looking quite tense. As we see Andrea Stella, the team principal of McLaren. Heavily rumoured that he's going to go off to Ferrari and be team principal, but personally I don't think that's going to happen. Ferrari seem pretty happy with Fred. As it looks like Ferrari are about to release Charles Leclerc onto the track. And looks like Antonelli is about to be released as well. And Hamilton also set to be released. If you're wondering why they all come out at the same time, it's not because they're waiting for one of them to blink in terms of going out on track. It's because The engineers will crunch the numbers and they'll find out exactly when is the best time to go out on track for the first run and vice versa for the second run, because obviously you want to time it perfectly for, when you get your laps in and having access to the best levels of grip on the track when the track, is best rubbing in and all of that. As we've now got cars on track on their outlaps, the best time in qualifying so far was a 106.7. So, yeah, I'm still pretty confident, like I said earlier, that pole position is going to be a mid 1 minute 6. A 106.4 is, I think, the best time that can be done in this final 9 minutes. So that's the time to keep your eye on, 106.4. If anyone can do that with their first run, they are going to be either on pole or very, very close to it. As we are looking at Lando Norris, who took pole here last year. He knows what it's like. Now he's got to go and deliver it for a second year in a row. Lando Norris starts his first attempt at pole position in the Styrian Mountains. As Lindblad has been noted for an unsafe release, didn't quite see that. Good first sector, 16.6. Bit of a rough run through turn 3. He ran a tad wide. That wasn't great. That would have cost him maybe a 10th. As Max has done a really good first sector, a 10th quicker than Norris. As Lando through the middle sector. This feels like a good lap, but doesn't feel like a pole position or a provisional pole position lap. Let's see what Max's middle sector's like compared to Norris. Oh, it's good. It's 0.4 quicker than Norris. As Norris goes quickest on a 106.9, but Max Verstappen is about to do an absolute stonker of a lap. Here comes the king of the Red Bull Ring. What's his first time? It is a 106.4. What a lap by Verstappen. As Piastri goes second, 0.2 slower. How does he do it? Max Verstappen, what a first lap that is. As Isaac Hadjar goes fourth, here comes Charles Leclerc to the line. Third and nearly 0.3 down on Verstappen. Antonelli after the first 2 sectors is 0.2 down. None of them can get near Max Verstappen. When have you heard that before? As Lawson goes ahead of his teammate, here comes Antonelli to the line, who does an amazing final sector and goes quickest. Wow, what a final sector that was, as Russell goes second. The top 3 covered by just 0.06 of a second. And all of them have done a 1 minute 6.4. Wow, 3 epic laps by them 3 drivers of Antonelli, Russell and Verstappen. Piastri currently 4th, Leclerc 5th, Norris 6th. Hamilton clearly made a mistake on that lap. So he didn't do a lap. And yeah, turn 3 went, I think, too deep. But wow. I thought that lap from Max was too good. But then the Mercedes drivers have gone and banged in 2 brilliant laps. But it's not over yet. They're still with 5 minutes to go in qualifying. 1 run to go. And with Max, he's so tantalizingly close to pole. Can he get it? He can almost touch it. And if he does get pole here, this could really be the boost that gets Red Bull and Max Verstappen's season going. But again, one run to go. What will Ferrari's response be? What will McLaren do? We are yet to find out. If they can go even quicker than the top three, if they can go even quicker than they did in the first run, then wow, that would be incredible, really. As we've now got 4 minutes to go, looks like they're set to release both Ferrari cars. As it looks like as well, McLaren are about to get back out there. Verstappen, of course, has dominated this Grand Prix for years, but he hasn't had pole position here for 3 years. Last year, messed up the final lap and ended up low down in the top 10. 2024 he had pole here. So 2 years ago. But yeah, he's had pole here. I think 5 times. Can he reclaim the throne of the qualifying master of the Red Bull Ring? It will take some effort to beat these two Mercedes who are super quick, as the Racing Bulls there of Lawson comes out onto the track. And now we've got a few cars on the track. Now we're looking at Lewis Hamilton. Didn't get the first run right. What can he do for the second run? If he goes quicker than Leclerc and Piastri doesn't improve really on his final run, Hamilton might be able to get onto the second row, which I think he'd be, I won't say happy about, but I think he'd be satisfied with that, given how Ferrari have looked this weekend. As out comes Max Verstappen in the beautiful Red Bull livery. And he will be cheered on, willed on by the crowd, who are heavily in his favour. As no further investigation for Lindblad for an unsafe release. Again, I didn't see it, so I can't comment. As here is Lewis Hamilton. Still hasn't had a pole position in a Ferrari, unless you count that China sprint race or sprint qualifying. What can Hamilton do? As he starts his lap, good run through turn 1. Now flat down the straight through the kink of 2 and up to turn 3 where he made the mistake last time. And he's half a tenth up on Antonelli after the first sector. So a good start. But the middle and the final sector that is the real important part of the lap. You don't really get to know if the lap is a good one until the final or to the middle sector. Leclerc does a purple first sector. Norris matches Antonelli for the first sector. As Hamilton 2 tenths up on Antonelli after the first 2 sectors. This is hammer time. And can he deliver? Pole as Hadjar goes up to 4th. Here comes Lewis Hamilton to the line. And it's pole by 6 thousandths of a second, but Leclerc behind is going even quicker. A purple middle sector for Leclerc. He comes around the final corner to the line. It's pole by half a tenth. Ferrari on the front row. Norris only 6th. Verstappen is to the purple middle sector. Piastri, only 7th. McLaren will be disappointed with that. 6th and 7th as Max has lost control. And he's into the barriers. He smashes hard. And that is gonna ruin Mercedes' chance. Because Russell would have had to back off, and so would have Antonelli. Ferrari have locked out the front row. Verstappen into the penultimate corner. He was pushing too hard. Lost the rear end and went smashing into the barriers. Oh no, Russell's done it. He's gone on to pole, but did he lift? Did Russell lift? He's gone quickest on a 106.1, which is a brilliant lap time, but did he lift for the yellow flag? Well, I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about that lap. We need to see if he lifted, because if he didn't, I think he's going to get a penalty for that. Because Antonelli definitely lifted, and Russell was behind Verstappen on the track. And yeah, Max, he just turned in, and the rear end just couldn't cope with the amount of speed he was carrying into turn 9, which is such a shame, because he did a purple middle sector. Yeah, he turned in off the curb. It's just too much speed for the rear end. The rear end just couldn't cope with it. Just pushing too hard. But we need to see, did Russell lift? Because the yellow flag came out. Russell was behind Max on track. And the yellow flag stayed out. It didn't come back in or anything. Antonelli, we saw, he lifted. Russell, I think, I'll be honest, guys, I've got the feeling that Russell did not lift. Here we go. Yellow flag. Does Russell lift? I don't think he's lifted at all. I don't think he's lifted. I think Russell's in big trouble there. I think Russell's in trouble. I think he's going to get a penalty. It doesn't look to me. I can't hear the throttle, whether he lifted, but I doubt he lifted that much at all. I mean, if he lifted off the throttle significantly, then he would have ended up being on pole by half a second. But I think he is sped under yellow flags there. And I think he's celebrating, but I think he's in trouble. I think he's going to get a penalty for that. And speeding on the yellow flags, that'll be at least. And yet, Russell incident officially noted, yellow flag infringement. So we'll see, but I think he's in trouble, and I think we're going to have a Ferrari front row for the Austrian Grand Prix. Russell, I think, is going to end up at least 4th, maybe even lower, depending on how the stewards look at that. But I think Russell's in big trouble. He just doesn't know it yet. Anyway, for now, George Russell is on pole for the Austrian Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc is 2nd. Lewis Hamilton 3rd. But again, if Russell gets that penalty, which I'm sure he's going to get a penalty, I think it's a Ferrari front row lockout for tomorrow. And then Antonelli 4th. Verstappen 5th. Norris 6th. Piastri 7th. McLaren will be very disappointed. Hadjar 8th, Lawson 9th, Lindblad 10th, and the rest of your field, Gasly, Bortoletto, Behrman, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Colapinto, and then Sainz, Albon, should be Perez ahead of Bottas. Now it is Perez, and then Bottas, Alonso, and Stroll. But yeah, Russell surely is in trouble. And let me, for people that have been watching the session, let me know in the chat, guys. Do you think Russell is going to get a penalty? I am pretty confident he's going to get a penalty. disappointing for Max. I mean, driver error, but at least he knows that the pace is there. That's that's something. Who is your driver of the day for qualifying in Austria? Let me just set this poll up. That's just seen Fred Vasseur on the TV, just texting on his phone, and he definitely looks like he's off to go ask some questions. So I'm not going to put George Russell in the driver of the day vote because I am pretty confident he has committed an offence. So the driver of the day options will be Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, not Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Kimi Antonelli, and I'll put Arvid Lindblad. Driver of the day for me is Charles Leclerc. Because I consider him to be the real pole position man. Rooks in the chat saying, unless he was less than 0.3 from passing the crash before the yellow appeared, he's toast. If you go look at the replay on board, he is, he's way behind that. There's no way. I just don't see how he's going to keep that. I'm just trying to look on X. Apparently, Nibs just letting me know that apparently he's got pole, but I'm not seeing anything to confirm that. All right, so just been announced, no further action. That's bullshit. That is complete bullshit. According to apparently Russell said he lifted and backed off by 0.2. I don't believe that for a second. If anyone watching this stream, if you believe that, then you are gullible as fuck. Russell did not lift. No fucking way. I don't believe that. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I know you'll say, oh, but the stewards, they look through the data in terms of like throttle trace. How? I don't see how they could look at that quickly. They literally noted it and then no further investigation like 2 minutes later. Russell claims he was half a second. No. No. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. Maybe he lifted, but not to the extent that he's claiming. And if he did lift slightly, then clearly, if the FIA have viewed that data, clearly, it was, even if it was a small lift, clearly it was big enough for them to agree with it. They're now showing Crofty on the fucking TV screen. I assume he's now saying or showing some sort of data that shows that Russell lifted. But we're not seeing it. He's showing us some sort of screen in the background. We can't see it. So yeah, I no idea what to think. Well, there you go. Yeah, I have no idea what to say. But if he is like I said, if he is lifted, it's not to the extent that he's claiming. No chance. Absolutely no chance. As they're just showing a replay of Max Verstappen's accident. I do wonder though whether Sass the Brain says, for me, the lap of Russell was not 100% full. That is on the sound clear to hear. Well, I haven't heard the sound, so obviously I'll need to go and listen back to it. But I would not be surprised if a team protests that decision by the FIA, because I literally, I just don't get that. Also, not only was a yellow shown, but a double waved yellow was shown. So there's a difference between a yellow and a double wave yellow. A yellow is slow down. A double wave yellow is slow down and be prepared to stop, which would definitely, you'd have to basically just abort your lap. So I even though they say for now, or it's not under investigation, I have a feeling that this is going to rumble on into the for the next few hours. BC Borgiver says presumably a lift has to have a defined amount of. Presumably, yeah. I mean, if you lift like, if it's the slightest lift, then yes, technically you have lifted, but there has to be like a minimum amount, accepted amount that you have to lift under a yellow or even a double waved yellow. I just don't believe that Russell was as far up on time as he was claiming. I don't believe that. Chaz, he hasn't lifted. They were saying there wasn't a double wave yellow. Well, on the system, there was a double waved yellow, and then it immediately went back to yellow again. So there was a double waved yellow, but it's, it's confusing because, when did the double wave yellow appear? Sorry about my throat there. Ultra says, Chaz, trust me, he hasn't lifted. He came into turn 8 and his car starts to flip slightly, but he's full throttle when he's clipping. That's the thing as well, is that actually, you might actually have a point there about the clipping. That might be where the FIA have messed up. They think because Russell's speed dropped on the entrance to the corner, they might think he lifted when actually he didn't. That was just clipping. So that's a really good point you've made. Nib's just telling me that Crofty and Karun Chandok are as baffled as everyone. There has to be some sort of further investigation about this. There has to be. There's just no way. I'm sorry, there is no way he lifted. I'll go and listen back to the onboard, but I'm sorry, there is no way he lifted. No chance. Absolutely no chance. And if he did lift, I don't think it was by enough. So, yeah, I'm not having it. And yeah, Austria saying, yeah, Chazzy's clipped 100%. Rooks has just posted a quote from Toto Wolff saying it was a 100-meter lift under single yellow and George lost a tenth and a half, so it completely on. I'll be honest, I don't trust what Toto Wolff says. I don't trust what any of these lots say. All these team principals. You know, we've known them to lie in the past. So, yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. If Russell keeps pole, then he keeps pole. But in a way, I kind of hope he doesn't win tomorrow now because of this. Because I am just, I'm not 100% certain, but I am pretty certain that he has, cheated essentially. His teammate did the right thing. He backed off because yellow flags. I don't think Russell has. I don't believe it. But yeah, I'm looking on X at the minute and everyone is absolutely baffled as to what's happened. So I don't really know. I don't really know what to say. But I think what we'll do is we'll finish up this poll in the chat and we'll head out of here. So yeah, I asked you guys who's your driver today for qualifying. 62 votes, and 41% of the votes gone to Lewis Hamilton, 39% for Charles Leclerc, and then Antonelli on 15% and Lindblad on 5%. Surprised Hamilton's won the driver of the day vote there, given that Leclerc out qualified him, but there you go. Even if Ferrari don't take pole though, they've got a really good chance tomorrow now. Really good chance. Because remember the race pace they had in Barcelona? And they do seem to manage their tyres better. So watch out for Ferrari. I think tomorrow could be a very good day if you are a fan of the Scarlet Red prancing horse. But that is it for what is a very controversial qualifying session. George Russell apparently is on pole. We'll see about that. That's all I'll say about that. We will see about that. But there you go. That is qualifying for the Austrian Grand Prix. I will be live tomorrow for the race. I will be here live 2 hours before the race starts at 12 p.m. UK time for the Austrian Grand Prix race watch along. I'll be joined by Niblo as well, my co-commentator, and we'll obviously discuss this before the race, and we'll see what the grid is when we get to tomorrow's Grand Prix. So make sure to join us for what is sure to be, I think, a very exciting Austrian Grand Prix, especially with this controversy happening. Spices it up proper. So yeah, thanks for coming on for this stream. We're great to have you. Before you go, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Make sure to smash the like button as well before you head out. And make sure to join us tomorrow for what should be a great Austrian Grand Prix. Like I said, I'll be live at 12 p.m. UK time, 2 hours before the race gets going. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And guys, until tomorrow's Austrian Grand Prix of 2026, one that promises to be a hot one with many pit stops. Until then, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.